Walk into a chicken coop on a hot, still afternoon, and the first thing that hits you isn't just the heat, it's the air thick, sharp, stinging your nose with ammonia. The birds are panning, wings held out, standing still because moving makes it worse. That same heavy, stale air settles into closed-up bedrooms in summer, into sick rooms, into any space without a cross breeze. I am Amish. I farm in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Today, I want to show you something that costs about $7, takes 15 minutes to build, runs on nothing but water and moving air, and does two things at once. It cools the air coming into a space by a few degrees, and this is the part most folks don't know. It cleans that air. It pulls the stink, the damp, and the ammonia right out. It uses the same material found inside expensive air machines that sell for $300 or $400. But instead of buying their plastic housing and branded filters, you're going to use the raw material sitting in a tray for the price of a sandwich. It is charcoal, but not the kind you cook with. I will be very clear about that in a minute because it matters. Let's start with the two tricks happening here. Understanding them is the whole game. The first trick is cooling, and it is the oldest cooling there is, evaporation. You already know this from your own body. When you sweat and a breeze moves across your skin, you feel cool. Why? Because as water evaporates, it carries heat away with it. Water cannot turn from liquid to vapor without taking heat along. So anytime you move air across a wet surface, the air comes out the other side cooler because it left some of its heat behind in the water. That's why a wet sheet hung in a doorway cools the room. Move air across wet, get cool. Simple. The second trick is what makes charcoal special. The right kind of charcoal is the most porous thing you will ever hold. A single handful, if you could unfold all the tiny tunnels and pores inside it, would cover an area bigger than this whole room. It's riddled with tiny passages like the most complicated sponge ever made. Two things come from all that surface area. One, it holds a tremendous amount of water and gives it up slowly as air moves through it, making it a perfect wet surface for that evaporation cooling. And two, and here is the part the expensive machines are built around all those little passages grab hold of the bad things floating in the air. The smell, the ammonia, the sour, stale compounds. The air moving through doesn't just come out cooler, it comes out cleaner because the charcoal catches and holds the foulness. They call it adsorption, but you don't need the word. You just need to know it pulls the stink out and holds onto it. That is exactly why they put this same charcoal in water filters and high-end air purifiers. You are getting both jobs cooling and cleaning out of one $7 tray. Now I have to stop and be very plain about which charcoal, because if you get this wrong, you will waste your money. You want activated charcoal. It is sold as loose black granules. You will find it cheapest in the pet section, sold for fish tank and aquarium filters. A bag runs about $5 to $8. You can also buy horticultural charcoal or the kind sold for air filters. Any of those is the right thing. Activated charcoal. That is the word to look for. What you must not use is the charcoal briquettes you cook with on a grill. That is a completely different material. It is pressed together with binders and chemicals. It is not riddled with those little passages, and it will not cool or clean the air. Do not grab a bag of barbecue briquettes and expect this to work. It won't. Activated charcoal, the loose black granules, that is the one. Here is how you build it. It truly takes 15 minutes. You need a shallow tray or pan, a baking pan, a plastic storage tray, or a wooden box lined with plastic. Anything that holds a layer of granules and lets air move across the top. Spread your activated charcoal in the tray about an inch or two deep. You don't need it deep. You need it spread out so air passes over plenty of surface. Then you wet it. Pour clean water over the charcoal until it is soaked all the way through. Let it sit for a few minutes to drink it in. Then tip off any extra water that pools in the bottom. You want it wet like a wrung out sponge, damp clear through, but not sitting in a puddle. Puddled water doesn't move into the air. Damp charcoal with air across it does. And you give it moving air. This is the part most folks get wrong, so listen close. The best spot is right at the opening where outside air comes into the space. The window where the breeze enters, the doorway, the vent. You set the tray right there so that every bit of air entering the room or the coop has to pass across that damp charcoal before it reaches you or your animals. A tray sitting in the middle of the room on a table does almost nothing. The cool damp just rises and mixes, and you never feel it. Set it at the intake, in the path of the breeze, and now every breath of air coming in is cooled and cleaned on its way through. That is the difference between a curiosity and a system. If you have a little breeze from a window, that will do. If you want it stronger, a small battery fan aimed to pull air across the tray makes it work harder, but it is not required. A good cross breeze does the job on its own, no power at all. That is the whole build. Tray, a bag of charcoal, some water, set at the window, $7, 15 minutes. Now here is the one real safety point, and I will not skip it. Damp charcoal in a wide open, breezy space, a coop with vents, a room with an open window is perfectly safe. That is how you are meant to use it. But you must not seal a big bed of damp charcoal up in a small, closed room with no air movement and then sit in there with the door shut. Wet charcoal in a sealed up space can slowly pull the oxygen down of a stuffy, closed room. So the rule is simple, and it is the same rule that makes the whole thing work anyway. This is for spaces with air moving through them. Open window, open vent, cross breeze. Never a sealed, shut up little room. Keep the air moving, which you want for the cooling regardless, and you are safe. That honesty is worth more to me than any clever trick. Where does this really shine? It's not your main living room on the hottest day of the year. I'll be honest about that. Where this earns its keep is the coop, the barn, the hutch, the stuffy back room. A chicken coop in high summer is a hard place. Birds don't sweat like we do. Heat troubles them badly, and it can turn deadly when it climbs past 100 degrees. On top of the heat, you have ammonia building up from the litter, stinging their lungs and eyes. It's a welfare matter, not just comfort. Picture a frame of damp charcoal set right in the vent opening of that coop. Build a shallow box from scrap wood, open on two sides, lined with screen to hold the granules. Fill it with activated charcoal and set it where the breeze enters. Every bit of air that comes into that coop now passes through the damp charcoal first. It comes in a few degrees cooler, which matters greatly to a panting bird, and it comes in with the ammonia pulled out. For a coop in a heat wave, that is the difference between birds that suffer and birds that come through. Same idea for a rabbit hutch, a dog's kennel, or a sick room in the house. Now, I have to be honest about the cooling limits. The cleaning, the pulling of smell and ammonia works no matter what, wet climate or dry. But the cooling part depends on dry air. Evaporation only cools when the air has room to take on more moisture. In a dry climate out west or in the high plains, the air is thirsty. It pulls water off that charcoal fast, and you get a satisfying drop of several degrees. But here in the damp east, or down along the Gulf, the air is already half full of water on a muggy day. It cannot take much more off the charcoal, so the cooling is gentler, maybe a couple of degrees, not a dramatic plunge. So let me set your expectations. In dry country, this cools noticeably. In humid country, the cooling is modest, but the cleaning works just the same everywhere. I am not going to tell you a $7 tray will cool your whole house like an AC unit in a Mississippi August, because it won't. And anybody who tells you so is selling you something. What it will do everywhere is clean the air and take the edge off the heat at the spot where the air comes in. Know what it is for, and it will serve you. Honest is better than impressive. One more honest word on upkeep. The charcoal dries out. It works by being damp, so you re-wet it each morning 30 seconds with a cup of water, and after a month or two of catching smells, the charcoal fills up. But you don't throw it out. You spread it on a tray and set it in the full sun for a good day. The sun and heat drive the caught compounds back out, freshening it up ready to work again. One $7 bag, re-wet daily and sun now and then, lasts you the whole season. Think about what you are usually sold to cool and clean your air. The air conditioner runs all summer, and you pay for every hour. The air cleaning machine sits in the corner, costing hundreds, wanting a new filter every few months. Each one is a fine machine, I won't deny it, but each one is also a somebody sells you once, and then sells you again every month. The power to run it, the filters to feed it, the repair when it quits in the worst week of the heat. Here is the quiet truth. The thing inside that expensive air machine that actually catches the smell is this same activated charcoal. They put it in a plastic housing, give it a brand name, and sell you a fresh one 4 times a year. You can buy the same charcoal loose by the bag for a few dollars and set it in a tray at your window, freshening it in the sun for nothing. It is not a different secret. It is the same material with the expensive part, the housing, the brand, the recurring sale stripped off. That is why you haven't heard of this. Not because it doesn't work. Works. It's the same stuff doing the same job. But because there is no money in a bag of charcoal in a tray. Nobody can sell you a monthly filter for a tray you freshen in the sun. Nobody can put a brand on a window breeze. The knowledge is not hidden in a vault. It is just quiet, because quiet does not sell. The expensive version shouts. The $7 version sits there and works, and only the people who never stopped using the simple things ever remember it is there. We use the simple things because we have to, and because the simple things do not fail you in the worst week, and do not bill you every month. A man who can cool and clean the air for his family and his animals with a tray of charcoal, and the breeze through the window is a man who needs to ask no one's permission and pay no one's bill. That is the whole of it. So here is what I want you to do going into this heat. Get yourself a bag of activated charcoal, the loose black granules from the pet aisle or garden section, $5 to $8, not the barbecue briquettes. Spread it an inch or two deep in any shallow tray. Wet it down good, pour off the extra and set it right in the window or doorway where your breeze comes in, not in the middle of the room. Keep the air moving through it. Re-wet it each morning. If it's your animals you are worried about, build a little screen-faced box and set it in the coop vent or hutch opening. Give your birds and rabbits cooler, cleaner air through the worst of it. And remember the one rule, air moving through, always. Open window, open vent, cross breeze. Never sealed up tight in a shut room. Tell me in the comments below, what are you going to set yours up in? The bedroom, the coop, the barn, the camper. And if you are down in the humid south, tell me what kind of drop you get, because I've told you to expect it gentle there, and I want to hear what you find. I read every single one of these, and what you all report back from your own places is the reason I keep doing this. Next time, since I've mentioned the birds, I am going to show you the whole of how my family keeps a flock cool and healthy through a heat wave, the shade, the water, the dust, the way we set up the coop so the heat never builds in the first place. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, keep the air moving, let the water and the charcoal do the work, and remember, the people who built this country with their hands knew things we are only just starting to remember.